Okay, so let's go, and how about from the franchisees' perspective, why are mid-scale properties so attractive to them? Why do they want to put them up?
I think it's the ROI, because you're keeping your construction costs down, right? And all the brands, I mean, we're trying to make these boxes as, take all the cost out of it, make it as cost effective as possible to get the best return.
Yep.
But yet there's really no rate ceiling, right? Because these mid-scale, they're evolving, like a Comfort Suites and some Augustus brands and La Quinta and Best Western, the mid-scale brands are evolving. So you can keep your construction costs, your fixed costs down, but go in markets that have a high ADR. That's that sweet spot in terms of getting the best ROI. So I think that's probably the main reason.
Right. Your cost of running them is so much less.
Yeah.
You got a front desk person, you got a couple, housekeepers, and you're running. I mean, that's the difference between
and I agree with her still, and a lot of these properties because when you look at the mid-scale, you're going to look at probably 75 and above, 75 to 125, sometimes smaller. You do need the salesperson sometimes. And that's where properties fail, is they don't have that dedicated salesperson to go out there and do it. They expect somebody else to do it. They expect the brand to do it, and that's tough. But the mid-market's nice because you don't necessarily need the third party to give away 5% to manage my asset. That's the only time you're going to do that in that market is when you have 10 of them and say, okay, let's bump it out a bit.
I think that market's key. When you're starting to talk, differentiate between the secondary market, then down to a tertiary market, and having a really good, solid piece of land in Nashville, let's say, or one of the suburbs of Nashville, then you're starting to look at, okay, you want to go mid-scale because, number one, you're not going to build economy. And then number two is you've got that rate sensitivity that in some of the regional markets around Nashville that are highly, a really growing, great population area, you're talking about $75 to $150 ADR, and then that just screams mid-scale for you. And so when you start looking at the price of land and you bake that all in and you're trying to work out where it's going to be, A, what's the bank going to give me, and B, what is the return that I can actually generate for either the investor or yourself, it's just mid-scale and select service. That's where it's going.
So it was mentioned just the ability to follow rate among upscale and upper upscale rate leaders. Talked about financing, talked about the economics, but also the sites are relatively small. We can find those sites where someone wants to do a 250-room upper upscale hotel. Those sites are much harder to find in good locations.
Right.
And I don't know what your experience is, but in the market research we performed last year, there were a lot of old good sites that had, quote, motels on them. Those buildings can be raised, but they were the wrong product in the right site. With the right product on it, they're phenomenal.
But, Nashville's a prime example. I'll go back to that one because we've been looking at a number of sites down there at the moment. The cost per square foot, downtown Nashville, near the convention center, has gone up to $240 a square foot, where 3 or 4 years ago you could get that for $40 or $50 a square foot. Wow. Now, you can't build on $240 a square foot anything other than upscale property and think that this is going to work. But as you start to go out like that, you do see that some of these properties, there's a couple of really good comforts that are down there sitting on gorgeous pieces of land that are worth more money. The land is worth more money than the building and the operations itself. And so in those prime secondary cities and markets that are starting to develop across the United States, I think there's going to be some things, there's going to be opportunity.